Well, hey there, my name's Luke, and you're listening to the Good Folks Doing Good Work podcast, a podcast where I interview folks all throughout the coffee supply circle about the good they're trying to bring into the world and hopefully remind you to keep bringing good things into this world in your context. Let's get into this week's podcast. Well, today I have the privilege of chatting with Patrick Burns, who is the founder and CEO of Palace Coffee Company located in the Panhandle of Texas. Patrick's career has been focused on hospitality, specialty coffee, leadership, entrepreneurship, and building meaningful coffee culture in micropolitan communities for the last 17 years. Since 2011, he's helped grow Palace into a multi-unit coffee company with cafes, a roastery, and wholesale partnerships. In the last few years, I've gotten the chance to bump into him at coffee events, and I always look forward to our conversations. You'll likely notice him as the best dressed guy in the room, sporting one of my favorite accessories, a bandana, all the way from Amarillo, Texas. Welcome to the Good Folks podcast, Patrick.
Thanks, Luke. I'm excited to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to have
and
you.
I do appreciate you saying I'm the best dressed. There's definitely some people that have much better fashion than I do. And I think you might have been sporting the bandana before me, so I might have actually bit that off of you when I was in one of your workshops. So
That's very sweet. I thought about wearing one today. I said, you know what? This is your podcast. I'm going to let you take that mantle.
You were too kind, but I appreciate that. So no, I've been looking forward to chatting with you. So it was great bumping into you again at World of Coffee. Yeah. And when you mentioned that you might have me on, I was super stoked to be around.
Yeah. Well, today's a special day for another reason. It's your 15-year anniversary as a company. Is that right?
It sure is. Yeah. So we opened our doors in Canyon, Texas 15 years ago today. So,
wow.
So yeah, it's pretty special.
If you were to write one sentence to yourself 15 years ago, put it in an envelope and mail it back in time, what would be on that card that you wrote to yourself 15 years ago?
Trust yourself and trust your people. It's been one of the hardest things that I've had to learn to do over the 15 years.
Yeah. Why trust yourself?
There's a lot of second guessing that happens inside your own head, at least in my head. I don't know about you and kind of how you are,
totally.
If you're pretty solid, but depending on the seat that you're sitting in different companies, sometimes the decisions do land with you. I'm a big person that believes in teams and having people have their opinions that can kind of help weigh in on your decisions. What I've learned is that it's okay to be the boss sometimes too. Sometimes if you have a direction to go and you're trying to appease people or you're trying to let people be a part of the process, but you definitely have a direction you want to head, it can actually be worse if you don't just trust your gut and say what you want and why. And so then down the line, people might go forward with it, but there's not an understanding behind it. And so that's a big part of it. And then trusting the team. One thing that's really made us stronger as a company over the past few years, with my wife kind of leading the retail side of things, is we put together a really good accountability system for Palace, and trust is a part of that. And it kind of was the last thing that came to the table. But one thing that I feel is important is for your staff to feel trusted, that you can equip them. That's our job, is to equip them and make sure that they have everything that they need to achieve the goals that you have set for them, or the standards that you have set, the practices you have set. And if we fail to equip them, then we're failing on our part. But once we have done that and we feel like they're in a good place, we've got to trust them, and we've got to be okay with them learning and growing. And sometimes that looks a little messy, and you have to trust the process and trust them and the relationships you've built with them to kind of make it to the other side of it and become better.
Hey, really quickly, I have 3 things I want to share with you. Number 1, I run a consulting firm called Pomelo Coffee Consulting, and I only work with coffee roasters, and I help them with 3 things: their people, their processes, and their profit. Now, within Pomelo, I also run a cohort for owners. There's some learning opportunities, there's some reading opportunities, there's some hot seat sections, and I got to tell you, it's been pretty amazing to see what's possible when a group of owners are sharing the things that they're facing, both the good things and the bad things, and providing some camaraderie and also a mirror to see that I'm not alone in this world, in this business. And there's people who are doing similar things, maybe have already done the things that I'm doing and that I'm facing. If that sounds interesting to you and you want to find some other roasters and have some camaraderie with them, you can go to my website, pomelocoffeeconsulting.com, go to the Junto tab. There's a tab at the top of my website, and you can learn more and see if you're a good fit for that. Lastly, I wrote a book. It's called The Owner's Manual, A Guide to Sustaining a Coffee Roaster. And really, fleshes out the framework that I use when I work with clients, the core 7 that is. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, you can go to my website. There's a tab at the top that says book, and you can snag yourself a copy. All right, back to the show. I was just speaking with an owner on Monday about a situation where he had to be the boss, and he had to say, we're going this way, we're doing this decision's already made. I'm sorry that you're having to suffer through the consequences of this decision, but this is a reality for us. And I asked him, I said, where do you feel that? Because he called me and he was just he was kind of freaking out about it because there's a bit of like tension of like, am I doing the right thing here? And I asked, I said, where are you feeling that in your body? And I'm curious for you, where do you feel those I call them inflection points? Where do you feel that inflection point of leadership in your body?
It typically starts in my gut. I mean, just that pit that kind of happens whenever one of my major things that I'm working through, I think counseling is a very good thing for everybody, especially people in the service industry. That's why we have a counseling program for our staff. But one thing I'm always trying to work through is not just be a people pleaser. The history of Palace over the 15 years is that I really want to hear people. I want them to be seen and valued as people. And so sometimes I might be making a decision based on a person and their feelings more so than taking a step out. But I can always tell when that's happening because I can start getting out of that situation and feeling myself, wait, what was my reasoning for wanting to move forward with that? Was it to put them on my team to make sure that they feel, that they're heard, or was it really because I valued the input they were giving and lining that up against what I believe was the right idea, that those two things can come together. But there's also the thing to where I just want to be liked too, as the boss sometimes. That's just part of it. You want to be seen as the guy, or the girl that, people enjoy walking into a room with and hearing from. And so it's a fine balance to really check yourself. And so I'll get that pit in my stomach, a little bit, and then I'll have to take that to my wife or some good counsel about it. Like, hey, this is what's going on. I'd like to hear from you guys what you think. Because if you just take it to your head, you can look at a problem every which way and never find your way through and just find yourself in the struggle. And I want to make sure that we can walk out of a situation and not just stay stuck in it and rooted into it.
The reason why I was asking where you feel it is because people feel it in different places. For me, it's in my throat. It's on the left side of my throat, and I can feel like, oh,
Really?
I have to make a decision, and so people feel it in different places. And so I was asking you because I think
That's
it's
intriguing.
important for people to recognize like where you feel things as a leader. There's a decision coming up, or you already made the decision, and you're like, I'm going to have to jump over something here. So I think it's important to recognize where you're experiencing that. Thanks for sharing.
Wow. Yeah, I've never had anybody bring that question to me before. That's a really insightful concept.
Your first location was in Canyon, which is,
Mm-hmm.
what is it, just south of Amarillo?
It's just south.
Right?
It's about 15 miles south of Amarillo. It's it's a college town, about 12,000 people. I actually grew up in this area and lived on the south side of Amarillo, southwest side. And so I was actually in the Canyon school district growing up. So it was always our school, Randall and Canyon were rivals because we were in the same district. And, Canyon, being in Canyon proper, they definitely, had that idea that they were pretty important. So I've always known about Canyon. I've always, been involved with them, playing sports against them, doing theater, competitions against them. But whenever it came time for us to look to put a shop together, we wanted to look around our community and find out where there was a need for a place that people could come in and belong and kind of create something new that was, going to help that community. And Canyon just fit the bill. I remember I was actually sitting in Quill's coffee shop in Louisville, and I saw how busy it was. It was a shop that's on Baxter Avenue. And I was like, man, this place is busy all the time. And it was full of college people, just young 20-year-olds, studying, hanging out. And I got to be friends with the manager that week I was there. And he was like, yeah, there's two colleges right on the end of Baxter Avenue. And so all the coffee shops are full. At the time, me and my wife were looking potentially to move out of our area to open up the style of coffee shop that we wanted. But that kind of gave me pause to go, you know what? I really think going to a smaller college town that needs community, that's the easier entrance for us. It kind of feels natural. And I just thought of Canyon. They had a coffee shop there and a video store called Hastings, which was, Root was based in Amarillo at the time, but they really didn't have much else for people to go and hang out at. And so I called my wife and, while I was sitting there, I was like, hey, I think I know what town we should go to, you know, because at the time we were looking at moving to Austin, or Tulsa was actually a big thing that we were looking at, just because it felt a little bit like Amarillo, just a little bigger. I mean, we were looking at the DFW area, but neither one of us felt like it was time for us to move. And so we are just kind of on this precipice moment of like, well, what do we do next? Like, we have the idea, we know the style that we want to do, we know the hospitality we want to do, but what's next is finding that place. And so I called her and said, hey, why don't we, you know, go look at Canyon when I go back to town? So I think it was our 11th anniversary. We took a date to Canyon, Texas, the day after I got back in town, and had sushi and drove around and, you know, found what would then be our spot. So yeah, it was cool to kind of experience what I did at Quills, and then try to equate that to trying to create that for Palace. So I'm always trying to look at other people and what they have going on, because, you know, there's a lot of other great companies out there that are doing great things. And so if I can emulate or borrow, or, you know, even become friends with them to learn from them, that's definitely what we want to do. So it's great that Quills is a part of our story. You know, I know we're a ways away from Louisville, but I feel like I've learned a lot from a lot of different shops.
Yeah. What were you doing out in Louisville?
I was actually at a conference. My previous life actually worked in the mega church world, believe it or not, before I got into coffee fully, and actually, you know, started a coffee shop and a bookstore inside of the church I was a part of here. And I got contracted to start doing conferences, bookstore conferences, to teach kind of like a coffee shop portion of it, on how to build community and things inside of that world. And so I think that was my second conference that I got invited to that was in Louisville. So I would, you know, go to the conference, teach, and hang out with people, and then I'd peel away and go hang out on Baxter Avenue, and, you know, grab some good food and hang out at Quills. And, you know, that's where I met the Sooner Goss crew. And when I first went out there, I got to go check out their shop, which was cool. And this was before Palace started. But all of these things were what kind of navigated us into who we wanted to be.
It sounded like you and your wife had been working on a cafe concept for quite a while.
The driving factor was I needed a place where I could work. I'm not the best employee, Luke. I like to have a lot of ideas, and to have the room to kind of see what works. And so my wife could just tell that I was really unhappy, you know, kind of with where I was. Back that up to a few years previous, a coffee shop just kind of came to us. I used to run and manage a fine dining restaurant here in Amarillo that was family owned.
Cool. Yeah.
And it was the first time I ever worked for a family owned company, because before that I worked in retail. I was a mall rat in the 90s and early 2000s. After me and my wife got married, I moved out to Albuquerque and managed a clothing store when I was 19. And they gave me $1 million store to go run in a mall, which was really
It's
interesting.
amazing.
But I just love people. I love being in environments where people just come in.
Yeah.
People fascinate me. I love sociology, and kind of seeing what makes people tick. And so when I went to go, you know, work in the restaurant world, I got to see what it was like to work for a family owned business. And they brought me in, and kind of made me feel like I was a part of it. I got to run the wine program. I got to, you know, we actually won a couple wine spectator awards when we were there.
Cool. Yeah.
And so I got to, you know, find a passion, and host people well. You know, we had tons of birthdays and anniversaries and proposals. And so my favorite thing to do was to, you know, elevate the moment for people in that experience. But what I didn't love is I was really young. Me and my wife had our first son, Caden. She was pregnant with our second. So I didn't love the hours I was keeping. I was, you know, working until, you know, 11 o'clock most nights, you know, sometimes even later on the weekends until 1. You know, I wouldn't go to work until 3 or 4, which was the time that my wife was getting off. And so we were like two ships passing in the harbor, a lot. And for me, it's more important to make sure I'm a good husband first and a good dad second. And work does come into play, but it's third on the plate. So I had to kind of make a decision that I needed to pivot. And so we started thinking about what would it be like if we owned our own business? You know, what would it be? And so we talked about a bunch of different things, and coffee shops back in 2000. This has been 2003, 2004. It just felt like the right format for my personality. I love meeting people. I love hearing their stories, and coffee shops just kind of create that environment to where you can have those 5-minute moments with people and have them over a period of time, and you become part of their, you know, every day, which, man, there's just something about that routine, that ritual, whatever you want to call it, becoming a part of that for people and becoming a constant in their life. Man, that's how you make an impact, and that's how they make an impact on you.
Yeah.
And so we thought about it, you know, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. So I left, managing that restaurant, ended up working in advertising for a newspaper, our local newspaper for a little bit. And so I got to work with business owners in Amarillo and Canyon and the surrounding areas, asking them tons of questions about what it's like to own their own business. And while I was driving around, was always looking for a place to put a coffee shop. And finally I found one. It was in downtown Amarillo. Thought it was going to be perfect. Went and met the owner, had them do asbestos testing on this really great old building, got ready to sign the lease. And my wife was like, wait a second, you've never worked in coffee and you've never run your own business before. So maybe we should get some advice first before we keep moving forward. She's the brakes on the relationship. I'm all gas in a lot of ways. And so we went to the Small Business Development Center and talked to them about our concept, our plan. They were like, yeah, it's great. You guys seem like y'all, could be a really good couple, but can we see your business plan? And
My what?
record scratch moment for
Yeah.
sure. It's like, wait, I don't have that. I didn't go to college. I just started working, right out of high school. And so he's like, well, take this plan home and fill it out. And by the time you're done with it, you'll know if your timing, if it's right or not. And sure enough, I spent the next few months really digging in and trying to figure out, if it was the right time. And it wasn't. Business plan was, solid, but we didn't have everything that we needed to back us up in it. We don't come from money. Everything we had to do was, trying to make it ourselves and as best we can. And so we just put the dream on the shelf for about 3 or 4 years. I ended up working inside the church world for a while. And then it was inside of that they built out a new building and they tapped me for building that space out. They wanted to have a coffee shop and a bookstore. They knew I had a business plan already set up for me potentially down the road. And so I got to dust it off and pretend to be a business owner inside of that framework. I had to be profitable. I had to make sure that, our P&L looked right, that, our ordering was done well, and that we built relationships with vendors. That was around the time I went to my first SCA event, Anaheim, 2009, when Michael Phillips won US and went on to win World that year. So we got to then see kind of the bigger picture of what the coffee world really was outside of just our narrow viewpoint of what we thought it was back then. And so that really informed who we were. But then I started, really getting agitated about getting out and doing my own thing. And so before I lit a match, with where I was, I, made a graceful exit the best I could. And that's when we started really moving forward on the plan for Palace.
Yeah.
And that's when we found the building a year later. And the rest is, I guess, 15 years of history so far.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So yeah,
beautiful.
it's a long process, and I've got a
Yeah.
great partner in it who, knows how to balance me out really well.
Yeah. I do really appreciate that your wife was like, we need to possibly get some other eyes on this, because yesterday I had a conversation with somebody who's trying to open a roastery, and I was like, how did you come up with the number that you're going to raise to open this roastery? Because it was like 150 grand. And I was like, I think you're probably going to need at least twice that for what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so all that to say is, like, so much kudos to your wife. How have you guys managed sort of creating boundaries to have a healthy relationship in the business, and then also a healthy relationship outside of the business? I'm making an assumption here, of course, but
yeah, no, I appreciate that assumption. It is a lot of communication. We were high school sweethearts. We've known each other since we were 11, started dating our senior year, got married young, got married at 19, not because we had to, but because we wanted to, because we've always been considered to be kind of old people, even though when we were younger, we just always kind of had that mentality to us that we wanted to be older. We're that in between Gen X and millennial time, to where we were feral enough, like the Gen Xers were, but we were empathetic enough like the millennials were. So we kind of understood both sides of it. And so we just wanted to prove that we were adults way before we really were. And so we kind of worked toward that. And we leaned on each other really quick. I mean, 3 months in, at 19, moving to Albuquerque, not knowing anybody out there, having to find an apartment together, having to find a friend group together, having to find your own grocery store of where you're going to go. That'll either make or break you real fast.
Yeah.
Because you don't have everything that you grew up with. You don't have your families anymore. And so we became our support system. It could be considered that can create codependency, which I'm sure in some ways it did.
Sure.
Because we really were dependent on each other. So we just always had that ability to communicate very open and truthfully about how we feel. Whenever situations come up, we don't shy away from them.
Yeah.
We lean into them. And so we learned how to have healthy conflict, even at a young age. And so that's kind of how we handled everything. This is not the first time we've worked together. Whenever we moved out there and I was running that store, she was my freight person because I was working 60, 70
Wow.
hours a week
Yeah.
managing that store.
Yeah.
And she would come in 3 days a week and she would unbox the freight just so she could see me and hang out. And then we worked together in the church world. She was there for 10 years. I was there for 5. And so we've always been very adjacent to each other in our work. And we also really value each other's counsel because we really are unique bookends to kind of how we see the world. She's very linear in her thinking. She's very structured. She's one of the best administrators and leaders that I've ever been around. Reading part of your book and hearing a podcast that you were on, you talk about processes a lot. That's who she is. She puts together amazing processes for other businesses and she does consulting work as well as helping run the company. She has that part. And then I get to have the kind of creativity and the vision aspect of it. And I'm the risk taker out of the two of us. And I have that kind of spider web thinking to where an idea pops up and I ideate 18,000 different ways on how it could work and try to, connect the threads together until we get to a finalized product and then take that to her, pitch it to her and her teams. We do a program called VBI, a Vision Build Implement program. Anybody in our team that has an idea, they have to fill out this vision document of all these different aspects of what it is and how it's going to benefit, whether it's a community concept or a profitability concept. And then you present it to our leadership team and then they get to tear it apart and really ask you all the questions and then figure out if it's a now thing, a not right now thing, but a yes, or a thing that doesn't seem to fit in. And if it turns into a yes or a not right now, but later, then it goes to our build phase. And that's where the team of people that are really good at implementation and building, they kind of take that on. And then once we do that, then we put the implementation of what's that going to look like, how much runway we're going to give it. We've been doing some business consulting, being coached over the past few years. And so we've gained a lot of different viewpoints on how to run the business. But at the core of it, it always comes back down to our communication style and the fact that we're not scared of conflict. And we're also quick to apologize. I'm pretty spicy as a person. I know if I overstep, I'm going to own it. And I want to be that model for everyone else to do the same thing. I mean, there's actually a situation yesterday that came up. We're in a transition moment with our roasting team. Our lead roaster right now is going to be moving to Portland at the end of October. And we've known that for a while. So we're kind of working on a 90 to 100-day process of it. And part of that is getting another woman in there that can help roast our queen line, which is coffee produced by women-owned farms all the way through. And we want to make sure that we have a woman on our staff that roasts it. And with Evelyn leaving, we want to get another one lined up. Crystal, my wife, she's roasted in the past and she's been a part of that, but she's very busy in her, world with our company. And so we had someone else that wanted to step in that's in leadership with us. And they kind of pushed the gas a little too soon on that. And I didn't know about it. And so I got an email yesterday from another one of our leaders in the company asking about it and felt very blindsided by it. He had every right to email me that and just say what he said. So I had to go, you know what? You're right. We need to slow down on this and we need to make sure that we're communicating all the way through. And then, he emailed me back a few hours later today and we got to a good point. So I think that's really what's been good in our marriage. And that's kind of how we run our business is we lean into that kind of stuff. Cause when things are unsaid, there's so many different ways for your brain and your thoughts to go negative. And we really try to operate with what we call charitable thinking and not just going into the negative, but always thinking, okay, this happened. I feel this way, but right now I'm assuming what their intent was, but I don't want to do that. If I'm going to be in charge of my thoughts and my feelings on this, I'm going to assume the best. I'm going to assume that this isn't the negative aspect of it. What were they trying to get out of it in the positive way? What's the charitable thinking? And that puts you in a different position when you actually go and have to have that conflict, when you have to go have that conversation, because you can say, hey, listen, this is how I felt, but this is what I know about you. And this is what I think you were probably trying to do. And then most of the time, that's the right answer. But how many times do we always just go negative? If we're already in that negative mode, man, it's hard to dig out of that hole. So at least start on level ground.
Yeah. You said VBI, and I'm like, oh man, that is such a great model for folks. I'm always thinking of like, how do we make these conversations helpful for owners that are behind you or maybe ahead of you that maybe don't have a model like that? So it's vision, build, and implement.
Yep.
So vision is like someone brings to you or to their team, this is the thing I want to build or create or this initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens during that meeting where you're like sharing that vision?
So that's whenever we kind of ask them some important questions to then go back and then they go to our Google Drive and pull out the vision document themselves, and they spend, however long they need to until they can get all those questions on that vision sheet answered. It's basically like a project version of a business plan.
Yeah. Cool.
It also teaches people inside of our company kind of how to think that way. We are in business. And so we have to think about profitability. We have to think about a lot of different aspects of, okay, what else are we implementing right now? Is this the right time? Because if we push this on top of this, what's going to go by the wayside? Because we only have so much attention we can give things. And so it slows us down the process, slow down to speed up. Will Gadara, everybody that does all the
Yeah.
hospitality stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Will's definitely the giant in the room. And so I really appreciate, him using that concept, slow down to speed up. I have ADHD. My brain is always running a mile a minute. And so this concept helps slow me down to go, okay, I can't get to step 5 yet because I haven't even done step point 5 yet. So I got to get that first, and then I can start moving toward a direction. And so it kind of hones in the process. Then once they have that fully ready, then they call the meeting to then, meet with us about the next aspect, which is the full presentation. They'll email it to us. They'll let us look it over and then have questions. We'll call the meeting. We'll dig it apart, and see what's happening. And then we'll decide from there what we're doing next.
So
So
cool.
so yeah, so then it goes into the build mode, and then it goes into the implement mode if it makes it out of that. So
It sounds like in some ways you're kind of, for projects, you're filling out the business model canvas. Who does it serve? How do we make money?
Yep.
What is the
What
timeline?
yeah, what are your risks?
Yeah.
What are the threats? It's a SWOT
Yeah.
analysis. It's kind of all those things together. So we
Yeah.
want to keep things as simple as possible because honestly, I'm not that smart.
Sure.
And so just keeping everything on a base level also helps me communicate well to other people. And what we want to do is we want to create this kind of world because big grand scheme of things and my big ideology is I want to try to be the best employer I can for my team and myself and my family. And then I want to be able to model that. So then whenever we go out and help other people open up shops or people that work with us through our roastery, we can also then help coach them, especially if they're in a smaller market, all that kind of stuff. They might not get the focus or the attention that they could have, but they can still follow through with all these same concepts. And we can help coach them through that. And then if they can then become the best employer for their town, man, there's just this whole upswelling of energy and just community and hospitality that starts to grow out of that. You just need to plant that seed. We're starting here so then we can export it out.
So something you have talked about with me offline is cross training
Mm-hmm.
and the value of cross training, specifically in your roastery. Why did you start cross training folks in your roastery?
So we basically just carried over our model from how we train people at the retail level. I've always been a big believer that one person shouldn't hold all the information because when that one person leaves or something happens, then you're back to square one. I've had the luxury of growing this brand with great people that have helped it move forward. And I've got to sit in every seat along the way outside of our head baker. I've never been back there in the bakery. I was a green buyer, roaster, so I can still slide into those positions if something comes up or transitions happen. Running stores, working bar, that was the first part of what we did because we didn't start roasting until about 9 years ago. And so the first 8 years was all retail and we're focused on that. Social media, marketing, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of the roles I've had to take on. But I want to make sure that I can pass that information on to other people and then they can do the same thing because the coffee world is a transient world for the most part. As far as baristas go, we look to have a 2-year turn on most of them. We definitely have some people that have been with us longer than that. People in our upper level leadership are anywhere from 8 to 10 years in our company, which is really cool. But we want to make sure that that information, like I said, doesn't just stay within that person, but that other people have that ability as well. So we've always done cross training. We never wanted to make it feel like, oh, well, this person, they're the machine barista, so they're the most important person on this bar. It's like, no. Like they're in this moment, they're running machine, but if they get pulled away to go and walk a drink and get caught up in a conversation, I need even a barista that's been here for 3 months to be able to slide in once they, have the ability to be able to handle that next drink or that next rush. And so we're always doing that dance to kind of who's best fit for the moment that we're in. But then as soon as that changes, who's next up that can do that?
Yeah.
So we look at our roastery the same way. We try to run our company in a very similar style. We don't want it to be manufacturing and different because that causes tension in the way that our company runs.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that everybody back there on our production side, they all have an understanding of everyone else's roles. Because one thing, it helps them appreciate each other more. Because if you don't know what that other person's doing, and you see them doing something like, oh, are they just on their computer right now? Are they just doing this? They don't know that they're going through reports or going through sell-throughs or all that kind of stuff. There again is that way for if they're having a bad day and they're in a negative thought process to see things in a negative way. But if they know what other person's doing because they also know how to do it, then it helps them, first of all, support that person and what they need. But second of all, it kind of just clears up any misnomers that could happen and misunderstandings. And third, people need breaks. People need to take time off. I don't like having roasters that just come in at 7 o'clock and work till 4 and don't take a break. Like you need to, you've got to step outside and take a breath. You need to go in sunshine, whatever it is that resets you for the moment. Because man, that tunnel vision is real. So that's a big reason why. I think it might stem from me growing up playing sports. I love baseball. I've played since I was 5, and I loved being the utility player. I had my position, but I also could fit into other positions really well. So I've always viewed utility players on a team as one of the most important aspects of it. And they've got to know everything, or equate that to theater, your understudies and people that have different tracks. They have to learn the whole show. They're not just a principal actor that has to do one thing. They might have to cover the principal. They might have to cover this person over here. And so having people that are there to back you up, it gives you more confidence out front as
100%.
well, because it's not all on you and your shoulders.
Did you have that mindset from day one that everybody's got to be cross-trained?
I did. So whenever I hired our first group of baristas, half of them actually were, baristas in other, other companies here in town. But a few of them, 2 or 3 of them had never worked in coffee before, but I wasn't going to stick them on register. I wanted to make sure that they felt like they were a part of it. So we were going to give them some extra reps. And when we weren't very busy, which, when we first opened in Canyon, we weren't, we got to have a lot of good time practicing, dialing in and tasting coffee together and doing basic latte art stuff. And then as they kind of got better, then they would then be the ones to train the next group of people coming through. And so it just kind of creates that snowball effect that we want to have in a positive direction.
Yeah. That's so healthy, and it's so necessary because, to your point, like, you're going to want to take a vacation, and so is your lead barista or your manager or
Yep.
whoever. And if they're the only people that can touch the machine, that is not helpful.
It
And
is not.
because then now you as the owner, when someone wants to take a vacation, you're there the whole week while they're out.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't scale. It's not
Right.
helpful. And it also doesn't give people opportunities to learn and develop. If you actually are trying to build something that can grow and to give people additional opportunities, it's got to be part of your plan.
We started making a transition about 10 years ago. My wife came into the company full time. She kept the
Okay.
full-time job with the insurance and everything for the first 5 years. That way I could see if this coffee shop thing would work. And it started working. And I had 2 managers that were moving off right around the same time. And I remember coming home saying, hey, Andrew, we knew he was going to be going, but I just found out that Kevin's going to be moving to another coffee company up in Denver. And he's given us 3 months, but I got to figure out what we're going to do. And so she was like, well, what is it? What are you going to do? I'm like, well, right now I'm going to go pour me a glass of whiskey. I'm going to sit in this chair and I'm going to
Yeah.
think, and I'm going to go to sleep. And then hopefully by tomorrow I'll have at least a direction to start heading down to see what I'm going to do. And so I remember it was in an older house that we had, sitting down in a chair that we had in our bedroom, and I was putting my shoes on, and she was like, she came in the room, she was like, hey, did you figure it out? What are you going to do? I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, I don't know if you're going to like it. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I think it's time for you to quit your job and for you to come on and work for Palace full time. Because she was doing our book, she was doing a lot of the stuff in the background, but I really needed her to come in and be the administrator for our company and really help us grow and put some structure around things. Because for 5 years, man, just through grit and determination and dumb luck, sometimes you can end up in a good place, and that's where we were. We had a great group of people around us. We had our core vision that never faltered with hospitality. We had our vision with coffee that has always been moving that direction, but I'm a very unstructured person. I'm pretty chaotic. I like to have 1,000 things going at one time, and that's not the best foundation to build a company off of. And so I needed her to come in and kind of shore up our foundation. So that way everyone could kind of feel a little bit more at ease about working for Palace, because people loved it because it was a fun environment, but it also felt a little uneasy sometimes because
Yeah.
it wasn't stable.
Yeah.
And so she did. So she was like, okay, do you think Palace can sustain our family with both of us being there? And I was like, well, there's only one way to find out. And so she did. So she turned in her notice and gave them a very long, 6 to 8 weeks. She was working for a creative company at the time and brought the structure basically to make us a more professional company. And that's part of being professional is understanding that professionalism doesn't mean corporate.
Yeah.
we're still a family owned business. It's me and her. We don't have any investors. We don't have anybody
Yeah.
outside of, we had an original group of angel investors that we paid off in the first 5 years. We have some
Wow.
loans out there with some banks, but we were able to get it done and continue to grow the business. So whenever she came in 10 years ago, people were like, oh, there's this structure coming in. So man, we're not that mom and pop coffee company anymore. It's starting to feel structured. We're starting to have evaluations, which we always have, but now we're actually doing evaluations very structured so we can make sure that we're, making sure that everyone has the same playing field, that it's not just on who I'm closer to in the moment to have an evaluation with, or when their pay raise comes up to have an evaluation, but that there's consistency behind it.
Yeah.
That's what she came and did. And it created this conflict within us a little bit about, well, how do we become professional without losing our heart? And that's really what she's been able to do. And I do attribute a lot of that to the way that we cross train, because again, it gives people an understanding on all the different levels. And so we're very transparent in how we do things. Like, she sends a quarterly profitability email out to our staff that goes over where we are for the year profitability wise, what projects we're working on, things that are going well, things we need to focus on. And people are like, you share all those details? It's like, yeah, because that's our team. They need to know that. And I'm like, yeah, but you've got like a 19-year-old kid working there and you're letting them know what your profit is.
They're part of it.
Like, it's like, yeah, they're helping us create that. And at the beginning of the year, we do a bonus based off of our profit. 50% of our profit goes back to the company for projects. 50% gets farmed out and is part of our bonus program for all of our staff. They need to know where they are, that we've
Yeah.
had some years where we have zero profit, but we want to make sure that that stays in front of us and stays in front of our entire team.
How do we become professional without becoming corporate? This is some of the things that I bump up against sometimes for myself in the work that I do. Is the structure that's necessary can feel like it's red tape.
Yep.
And that's not the intent. The intent is as little red tape as possible to also become professional and to also be able to be strategic and to do the things you want to do, such as bonus out people or give
Right.
raises or be consistent with how we're doing annual reviews. And
Right.
those things are really, really helpful. And without some amount of structure, we're just shooting from the hip. And that's not what people want or need. People really appreciate structure because
Yep.
they know they can depend on you.
Mm-hmm. And then you get to model that for them and they get to see that in their own lives of how it makes it better. We've been challenged a lot by our staff, and we have people on staff that have made us so much better, because once that we started laying that groundwork, I got to see a different side of them.
Yeah.
And then they kind of helped us become more professional in the ways that they do it. We've got our director of retail, who I mentioned earlier, Cole. He's one of the most balanced people I know. He's one of the ones that have made us so professional as a company, because he's not ruled by emotions. He doesn't feel certain ways. He has thoughts and ideas and emotions because he's a human, but he doesn't let that dictate his actions. He'll sit and he'll process and he'll make sure that the movement he makes is the right movement. So that
Right.
slow down to speed up that Will Guidara talks about, Cole is all about that. And he's made us better. And he came to us when he was 18 years old.
Wow.
And he's been with us for 8 years now. So he's 26.
awesome.
He's director of retail, and he makes us better every single day. That's the other thing that's really cool, is that we do get young people that then grow up inside of our company and now are helping lead. And then if they ever do go off, which I hope Cole doesn't, I got another one, Robert, our director of coffee and equipment. He was another 18-year-old kid that we hired right out of high school. And now he's 28 with a kid and helping run my side of the company on the coffee side. So yeah, that's the other thing, is that what we're pouring into them, even though it might seem odd to share that much information with such young people, when they stay around, that's all they know. And so that's just the world that they live in. And so they can help then bring the next group of people on board.
So good. You've said slow down to speed up a bunch of times. It sounds like that's a pretty crucial decision-making framework that you guys use.
I've got it tattooed on my body, so I would hope so.
It sounds like you're pretty serious about it. What I'm reading between the lines here, so correct me if I'm wrong. What I hear in that is you're also saying no to a lot of things by slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question I have for you is, if you have 100 decisions that are in front of you, how many of those are you saying no to with this framework of slow down to speed up?
I don't know if I can quantify it into like a percentage. I don't think you can do many things well. I think you definitely have to be able to have your main areas. And so I think just based on who you are as a person and your capacity, I think you've got to kind of walk that out yourself. I have 3 departments that I oversee in the company on my day-to-day. So I've got blocked time through the week that I can focus in on my different departments and then check in on my people with that. And that's helped me. And then inside of those departments, there might be a whole litany of things. And so for me, I need to chunk that down into smaller bites because it's very easy to get overwhelmed
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
having too many things going on. You basically have to prioritize the best you can in real time of like, okay, here's my list for the day. Here's my list for the week. Here's all the things I have going on. What's on fire?
Yeah.
What needs my attention right now? What can only I handle?
Yeah.
I think this is a really good point to make. And my wife's really good about this. And she actually taught this at World of Coffee. But you have to understand what your role is in the company or your life and what other people have. Because if you're doing things that should be someone else's job, you're robbing them of a chance to grow. They might be better at it. Now, they might not be better at it right away, but our job is to coach. Our job
Yep.
isn't necessarily to do all the time anymore.
Yep.
So if I can coach them, then that's going to free me up to where then I can start focusing on the next thing. And so I don't know if it's so much a thing about how much you have to do. It's how much can only you do.
Yeah. There's a book that I love. It's called Scrum. And towards the end of the book, he talks about how the human brain can really only focus on 4 things. If there's more than 4, you start to get confused and you start to not actually have traction and have progress in the things that you're working on. And so you did answer that in so much as saying, I'm over 3 departments and that's
Right.
it. And within those, there's projects and things, but
Yeah.
that's enough.
We use working priorities. Again, just getting back kind of into that world. Everybody in our company, no matter what your role is, you've got a job description. That job description breaks down, pay, benefits, all that kind of stuff, and then your role, but it gives you your working priorities. And so if you're a brand new workaday barista, your 3 priorities are hospitality, bar work. And then if you move up to a shift lead, then you also have task management to run the shift for the day and all that stuff. It helps people stay in their lane. When they're starting to grab things that aren't theirs, it's easy to go, wait. Let's talk about your working priorities and how that works, because I don't mind that you're thinking about other things,
Yeah.
but is that your responsibility?
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, let's talk about it. If it's not, whose is it? Okay. Can you go to that person directly and talk about it? Or do you want a mediator to be able to go do the same thing? And so again, that kind of professional structure of creating these working priorities within their job descriptions, it gives people the template to know what their job is so they can know how successful they were.
Yeah.
So that's been something that has been revolutionary for us over the past few years. That again, my wife probably should be on this podcast with you, or
She
you
should
might need
be.
to do one with her because she
Get
really
her in
is.
here.
Yeah, she's a badass, man. She really is.
Yeah, she sounds like it. It's also helpful to see if somebody's working outside of their job description. One, you're protecting them from burnout because you're saying, hey, that's actually not like, thank you, but that's not what we need you to do. And then also it's giving you accountability for the person that is responsible for that thing that other person's doing. And so it's all connected together. So there was one thing I wanted to touch on was the REST framework that y'all use. And I'm going to see if I can do it by memory. Respect, encouragement, support, and trust.
There it is.
There we go.
Good memory. Yeah,
rest.
That's it.
So where does this come from? Where does rest come from? Why does it matter?
So we were going through business coaching we were in this group called the Founders Club, and it was CEOs of local companies that we were part of. And we were part of it for about 2 or 3 years. Our coach of that group, we would have one-on-ones with. He was a regular with us anyway. Like he was always in Palace when we had our downtown shop because he was working down there across the street. So we got to know him really well. And so he gave us the opportunity of bringing in our entire leadership to this month-long, once a week, over 4 weeks, dialing in what we find most important for our company. And so we all individually had our own worksheets that we were filling out. Make a list of words that you feel like are important to Palace. They're important for your hiring practices, important for your role. And so we started getting all these words on a wall, of all the things that we really feel are important for us and the vision of where we are. And then we started narrowing those things down, things that we felt like were our core 4, basically our core 3. It's kind of what we started putting together. And so we respect is a big thing for us. Learning how to you don't have to agree with people, but you have to respect their humanity. We don't have to agree with every single person that comes in our shop, everybody that works for us about everything. And too much, we're just looking for things in the world to divide us. But I think if we can understand humanity and at least respect people's humanity first, that's important. So respect's a huge thing. But the first thing you got to do is figure out how to handle that for yourself. How do you respect yourself? How do you earn that? So respect was an easy one for us to kind of talk about and build that up. And encouragement is that's my language. Like my job in the world is to go and make people feel like they can go and try something. Not that they're going to succeed at everything that they put out there to do, but man, what a boring life is if you just are always timid and scared and held back. You need that person in your corner that can speak truth to you, that's not going to go push you off a cliff to go hurt yourself,
Yeah.
but can help guide you along the way, but also be your hype person, help you go along the way. And so for me, I'm an encourager. And so I wanted to make sure that was a huge part of Palace, is that encouragement is part of our core vision. And then support. That's what we're there. Like we can't do it all alone. We have to have the people around us to support us whenever we're having a tough moment or even a good moment, like being supported in the good moments like that. There's just something about championing people. And so support was a big part of it. The last one was so tough. We kept on going around and about things that we felt about, our company and our staff and things like that. And our business coach, Brian, was like, man, he's like, I keep on hearing you say that it bothers you when you feel untrusted by your staff. Whenever you guys are making decisions and they just like, you guys have been doing this for a long time. And these are, young people that have never sat in these seats and they might not know, but they might have some good insight, but you guys feel untrusted. And a lot of times you might not be trusting them. So do you think that trust should be a core value? And to be fully honest and transparent, trust is a major part of my life that I have a hard time with. Like I have a really hard time. My wife is the kind of person that it's just easier to do it yourself, because it's going to be done right. Like that's her, kind of fall back on trust. And I'm the same way of like, it's sometimes hard to trust people's motives. And so that's where having charitable think came in. So what we did at the end of that is we're like, okay, this, support, encourage, trust, and respect. It's great. And so we were going over this on a FaceTime with our oldest, who was working in a coffee shop in Dallas at the time. We clue him on everything. He's 24. He's a teacher now. And I was going over all this stuff with him on this FaceTime. He goes, huh, did you know that spells rest? I was like, no. He's like, it does. And so we're like, okay, that's pretty cool. So we took that to our team and then we built it out. So the real framework of rest, because everybody that gets hired, this is our accountability document. Anytime that anything comes up in the company that we have to have a conversation about that doesn't feel right, this is our guiding light, basically. So most problems come down to, hey, this happened. So and so is having a hard time working shift with this person, or this person's not coming in on time, or this kind of stuff. Well, it will break down into one of those four areas. So is it a respect issue? Are you respecting the people you're coming in for? Is your time more important than their time? You're not showing respect to them. So let's talk about that. So it takes it away from this concept of treating staff like kids,
Yeah.
like they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And it makes it more of an accountability conversation. And then they understand, okay, I need to, first of all, respect, encourage, support, and trust myself. That's got to be the first level of framework. A lot of us have negative thoughts about ourselves, and imposter syndrome is a real thing. And so it's easy to kind of get in those shame cycles. And so how do you build yourself up? How do you encourage that? Well, we want to teach that to people. We want people to be able to feel like they can accomplish things and to encourage themselves. We want people to respect themselves. Even supporting yourselves in, hey, you got a shift tomorrow. Maybe don't stay out till 3 a.m. because you got to be up at the shop by 6:15. You're going to have one hell of a morning. And so support yourself ahead of time of thinking about what it's going to be tomorrow for you. And then trust yourself. And then, so it goes self, then it goes your staff that you work with. So your coworkers, respect, encourage, support, and trust them. And then it has the community at large, which is our guests coming in and our community that we're a part of in Amarillo and Canyon, and with our wholesale, even beyond that with that team. And then the company is the last line for it. But here's where I think is the most important aspect of it. Every single one of those things also has a company response downline. So how does the leadership of our company, how do we show respect to our staff? How are we making sure they do that? And if we're stepping out of line, they have every right to call us out. How are we encouraging? How are we providing hospitality by taking care of our team? How are we supporting them? So we started putting in some culture structure. So that's when we started a mental health program. Right now, probably 12 people on our staff right now that has talk therapy that they're going through, because we're in the service industry. We pour out to people all the time. We connect with people all the time. But so many times we don't know how to fill ourselves back up, or we have issues in life that we're trying to deal with. And then you put you in front of people in a hospitality setting, and we are unapologetically focused on hospitality and kindness. So they've got to be in the best version of themselves to do that. So how can I expect them to do that if I'm not giving them the tools to take care of themselves to make sure they can do with that?
Yeah.
And so that's why we put that in. So this has really revolutionized the way that we run our company. And I tell you what, people know when it's their time to go. We don't really have hard exits anymore because they've had enough of these conversations. They understand who we are as a company. And so it's an easy transition out of like, yeah, I'm feeling like, this is my time. Like, cool. How much time can you give us? What do you need? Do you need us to go and maybe look for something with you? How can we help you exit? Or how can we reformat you into this job? Maybe this isn't the right fit, but maybe we have something else that might be. So let's have that conversation. But because we have an accountability concept that everybody buys into from day one when we do orientation, and then we use it all online. Because if you have a tool that never gets out of the toolbox, it's really not a tool. It's just a weight,
Yeah.
that weighs your
Yeah.
toolbox down. You've got to
Yeah.
pull these things out and utilize them so people know how they can use them as well.
Yeah.
That's why we really, I think, have the culture that we have is because, again, we don't shy away from conflict. And when we do have conflict, we take the emotions out of it and we go back to the people side of it, the human side of it.
Yeah. I love how you said it. There's also a responsibility that business has, because the tendency for these types of things is it's painted above the break room or the bathroom door. And that's the last time you ever talk about it or think about it. Is just, it's on the wall somewhere.
Yep.
But there's a responsibility, if we're going to say something as a leader, as an owner, if we're going to say that we actually believe in rest or whatever the framework is that you're using as an owner, you got to actually do that thing. You actually got to show up, and you have to understand that the business also has a responsibility to live up to what we're expecting the individuals we're hiring to live up to.
If we are there to help hold other people accountable, then that mirror better be reflected back at us.
It's bilateral.
And every single person on our team has the right to hold us accountable.
Yeah.
Now, they don't have to agree with us on everything, but they have a right to hold us accountable. And they only can hold us accountable to what we tell them.
Yeah.
And so that's also a thing that I've seen in the coffee world and just in business in general, is that people want to hold you accountable to things that aren't even real because they've made it up in their head.
Yeah.
And so by having everything out, being professional and having it as procedure documents, having a good company book that goes over not just policies, but everything behind that too, it protects everybody.
It does. It does. It shows you how to interact as a team and as an employee. And I also think it's very interesting. At the beginning of this conversation, when you said that the sentence you would write to yourself 15 years ago was trust yourself, trust your people. And that's the last bit of rest, trust.
And it's the last bit that we added together. And it's the thing that I probably struggle with the most.
Yeah.
And so that's why I would tell myself 15 years ago, because when you can trust other people, you can, this is going to sound cheesy as hell, but you can truly rest. You can, take that breath and sit back and go, okay, they might not do it like I would do it, but they might do it better. And so I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust that everything that we've worked on together, that they have the vision, they have the DNA. And so they're going to do it. And I'll tell you what, man, some of the people I've put on this team that have come on and worked with us, man, they've made us so much better than I could even imagine. Our hospitality director that, she just had her first baby. So she's taken a step out. She came to us and she didn't drink coffee. I remember interviewing her in our downtown shop about 5 years ago. And that was one of the first things she said. But I was like, you know what? There's something about you. You understand people. You understand how to make people feel something. I'm going to bring you on anyway. And within 6 months, she was managing one of my shops. And then she became our first director of hospitality for us. And she's made our company so much better. The same way Cole has, the same way Robert has, the same way so many people have. It's because I trust them.
You have to. I mentioned my buddy Ty all the time on this podcast because he's spent a lot of years in hospitality, and we were talking about humility not too long ago, and he's like, people have a misunderstanding of humility. Humility isn't this thing where I'm like lower than other people. Humility is something where I'm allowing you to help me see myself more clearly.
That's really good.
And we were kind of working through this, and I was like, yeah, humility is a door that's unlocked from the inside. That you're saying, I'm willing to let you come into my business and make it better, make it something that I can't even make it.
Wow.
And that's what I'm hearing by what you're talking about here.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. I love analogies. I love pictures. Like, I think it sticks with people longer. So that's really good. I'm going to try to keep that one.
Yeah.
So I'll steal that from you. I'll give you credit though.
Okay.
If I remember.
Cite me. We'll cite Ty, I guess. You have talked quite a few times about the sort of resources that you offer to your team. And I also noticed that y'all have a minimum starting wage of $16 an hour.
We do.
Which is more than double the minimum wage in Texas, from my
Hmm.
understanding. The mental health services you offer, the healthcare services you offer, the bonusing structure that you offer, all of these things are so aspirational for owners. And I talk to folks that are starting out all the time, and they want to do these things off the bat from the jump. As somebody who is offering those things 15 years in, what would you say to an entrepreneur that's starting out, that's maybe aspirational, maybe they're not even open yet, who wants to add these types of things into their business?
I would say start small, start with one benefit that is attainable and find ways to make it work. We do offer a health program, but it's not the typical health insurance. We use a company called Sedera that's health sharing, and it's the right price for a lot of people that work in their 20s and stuff of what's going on. So it kind of takes the place for that catastrophic insurance program and that kind of stuff. So that was something that we started, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago. We had Aflac that we brought in, and that kind of started the ball rolling forward. Telehealth, it's $25 for if someone's sick to call that. So we actually will pay their like if someone needs to call in, we'll pay for that. Because I'd rather have someone take care of their health and know that they have that ability because they feel taken care of. And then they're going to come and take care of our guests better and take
Yeah.
care of each other better. And
Yeah.
so I would say try to find something that is an easy win for you. We partner for our mental health program. There's a group in town called Family Support Services that is a nonprofit that we partner with, and they have mental health counseling as part of it. And so they gave us a discounted rate. So we have X amount of hours a month that we pay into. That way, anybody that has an issue come up, there's an automatic easy onboard for them to where they can get in. Now, if it's an emergency situation, they can be in within 24 hours. But if it's not an emergency and it's just something else, it might take 2 weeks. But we kind of set up those things. And so it might seem like a daunting concept, but if you can break it down into the smaller monetary tasks and just start something, it helps. So you mentioned the $16 minimum that we have. I look at the MIT calculator for the cost of living wage for your counties, and I'll look to see what it would be for one person living on their own. And I try to make sure that that is the guaranteed minimum that they're going to get paid. We do have a tip system. We tip share across everybody that works bar, across all three of our shops, between people that are actually frontline. So if with their minimum that they're making plus their tips don't equal that $16, we foot the bill between there. But most of the time our baristas are $17, $18, $19 an hour with tips and everything included. So, there's few times that we actually have to do that. But if they're a professional and we're having a professional structure, I want to make sure they can live a life that is for our community. And so that's why I look at what the right pay should be for people in our area. But, if we were living in a bigger city, we want it to be bigger. We want it to be,
Sure.
be
Right.
19, 20, 21, 22, whatever it would be
Right.
at. And so I think that's important for people is that don't try to compare yourself to someone doing something in a big city. Don't compare yourself to someone in another country like Australia, all that kind of stuff. They're paying in dollary dues anyway. So it's not even real money, right? In Australia. And so compare yourself to yourself, compare yourself to the area that you live in, and make sure that what you can pay, you do pay. And if
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
pay that, figure out how you can or close your doors. Like it really is
That's
that
it.
simple. We have a responsibility to take care of the people that are entrusting themselves to our place of business. So again, I want to be the best employer I can. And so if you're 18 or 25 or 30 and you have a kid and you're working for us, I want to make sure that you can do the work that we ask you to do and you can get paid in a commiseration of a way to where they can have the life that they want. Anybody that's full-time open availability, they get PTO with us. So 18-year-old kids that come and they have open availability, they can work 40 hours a week and they can help us out. They start earning that time off because, man, talk about burnout.
Oh,
Talk
yeah.
about just a workaday person that never gets a chance to take time off
Oh, yeah.
because they're having to spin all the time. That's not fun for anybody. That doesn't make them the best version of themselves. And so PTO is important. We don't want people working over 40 hours a week. Work-life balance, man,
Yeah.
that's something we preach all the time. Be proactive and take a 3-day weekend every 6 weeks or every 8 weeks, whatever you need for your lifestyle that you like. Make sure that you schedule that ahead of time so we know what's going on so we can help protect you.
Yeah. It's
So
so good.
now, are we great at it all the time? No, but we try. That's a standard that we try to set that they can hold us accountable to. So if we fall
Yeah.
short, they can pull us aside.
And I think that's a good reality check for folks. You're going to try some stuff and probably won't work, and you might have to try some other stuff and see if that'll work for you. But start somewhere, start small, start practical, and you can build from there. Super good.
Yeah. Let
Super
people see
good.
that you're caring for them in a way outside of just the base level.
Goes a long way.
It does.
Goes a long way. Yeah. You were recently featured in Coffee, the Universal Language. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah.
Tell me
Yep.
about it.
So just a happenstance moment in our Wolfland location where our roastery is back in October. We cup once a week, all of our production line. We had just moved our cupping days back to Fridays. So I was there on a Friday morning doing cupping with our team, and it went long. We had a big cupping day. And so I left later than normal. And I left around 10:30 or 11 that day to come to the office. And as I was leaving, my director of retail happened to be working bar. Again, he does work bar, but he wasn't scheduled for that day at Wolfland. He just kind of jumped in to help. And as I was walking out, checking in with him, he was like, "Hey, you might go talk to this table sitting up front. They're driving through. They just got done in Memphis shooting Coffee Black, and they're doing some kind of documentary. Like Hollander's a sponsor, Minaragua's a sponsor, and so you might just stop by and say hi to him." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, for sure." And so I did, and it's this great couple, Ness and Darla Rodriguez. And you went up to introduce myself and asked them how everything was. And they're like, "Hey, we judge coffee shops off cortados and we travel all around. We're doing this docu-series right now called Coffee Universal Language. And we're just now taking a break from shooting season 2. We're driving back to San Diego to work on editing. And then we're going to go back out in January to shoot the rest of the season. And we happen to be driving through and we've never stopped here before. We looked you up. We thought, hey, this would be a cool spot to go and get some coffee before we head out of town. We weren't expecting this. And so tell me all about who you are in Palace and how this whole thing got started." And so I did. So I kind of, told them about who we were and what our vision is and and hospitality concept. They started talking about their series. I started, asking them questions. And turns out we've got a lot of commonality. We have a lot of friends that they've already featured. And so whenever they would talk about this city, I would ask them a question about this person. Like, "Oh yeah, well, they're one of our features." And then there was like, "Well, when we shot in this city," I'm like, "Oh, cool. Did you talk to this person?" "Well, yeah, we did." How do you know them?" It's like, well, the coffee world isn't as big as
Pretty
people think
small.
it is, especially when you're in the competition circuit, competition world, and the SCA world of coffee stuff. Like you really start to get to know people really well. And so we put ourselves out there 15 years ago. And so I got to know a lot of people. Then that's one thing that's made us better is that network that we've been able to build. And we want to be that for other people. And so 2 hours later, they came back to our roastery. They met my team. They got to hang out. And they're like, "Hey, we're interested in talking to you some more. Would you be down for being in season 3 if we shoot that next year?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to be a part of whatever you think. If you guys want to put Amarillo in your season, that'd be great." And I'm like, "Cool. Well, let's change information, all that kind of stuff." And so we did. And then about 6 weeks later, I get an email from Darla saying, "Hey, if we moved a city in season 2, would you guys be interested in taking that spot? Because we're about to go out in January to shoot, and you fit right along the line of where we're going. It's Miami to Austin to Las Cruces to Portland was the last part of the season, and we could put Amarillo right there if you guys could shoot at the end of January." And so I shared that with my wife and we're like, "Okay, yeah, let's do it." And so we did. So then I started working myself up to being like, "Cool crap. Now we're going to be on a docu-series, talking about who we are that's going to live out in the world forever." And
Yeah.
so, man, who are we? And so then
Yeah.
I started getting into your head too much about really making sure you're authentic in what you put out there to the world. And so we did. I went through, my dark night of the soul moment to really struggle with it, to make sure that what I was putting out there really was authentic to who we are. And they came and shot and they featured another coffee shop that I promoted. One of them, our partner shop in Dumas, Texas, which is a small town called Herencia. They got to be featured as alongside of us. And then another shop called 806 that's on 6th Street, which is Route 66, the famous highway. They're more of a kind of a counterculture artistic shop that I thought was really important to represent our community, to show that Amarillo and Canyon and the Panhandle, it's not just agriculture and just kind of what people would typically think of in this area, that there's a lot of art and creativity and concepts and community here that don't always get highlighted. And so I was able to suggest a few other shops, and those are the ones that they featured. And so it was a really fun week of shooting. It happened to snow right before they got here. They were driving in from Austin trying to beat the storm. They ended up actually coming in a day early and staying at mine and my wife's house. So we got to know them really well. So that was the process. They shot. And then they're like, "Okay, now whenever we, are getting ready to premiere, you guys don't get to see it. You got to see it live with everybody else. So we'll come back to Amarillo. We want you guys to host an event. So Oatly, Malcuni was a sponsor for it. Mineraga again was a sponsor for it. So we just had that happen on Saturday. We had the premiere. They
Wow.
came back to town, and we
That's
had 200
awesome.
people at our little theater that we're a big part of. They hosted it because that was part of the story, was that me and my wife are also involved in our community theater, and our kids grew up there, and we're on stage or behind the scenes doing stuff, as well as owning a coffee business in town too. And so it became a really interesting story, I think, for them to kind of highlight. So I'm interested to see what people think when they watch the episode. I think they did a really good job of showcasing our community well. And it's a love letter to our community. And it's really cool because now I have that forever. And it really
Yeah.
features our family really well
Mm,
of who we are. So
it's
I'm
beautiful.
looking forward to people looking at it. Season 1's already out. It's on Tubi, it's on Prime, it's on PBS. So it has people like Nicely Able. The LA
Yeah.
episode featured him. The Rogers episode featured Andrea from Onyx. The original episode was in New Orleans. They did one in San Diego and featured the coffee culture in San Diego. So season 1 was great to watch, but I had to watch a few episodes and turn it off until they shot my episode,
Sure.
because I was getting in my head way too much. It was an experience, and I loved making friends with Darla and Ness, and now I have another network group that we can now be a part of, which is cool.
Super cool. Well, I'm looking forward to watching that
Yeah.
and the rest of the episodes as well. The best operators in the country are lifetime learners, and so I'm curious, what are you learning right now?
Ooh. Well, I learned that it's important for me to be in mental health conversations and not just talk about it with other people, but to actually go myself. I've dabbled in it. I've gone to counseling a few times, but I'm really committed right now to work on myself and to
Yeah,
have someone I can talk with. A month and a half ago, I found a really good counselor that I'm going to,
it's
and
awesome.
that I can do. And so I think that's really important for people, no matter who they are, to have someone that they can talk to, but specifically someone that's a professional that can share a different perspective with you. So I'm really trying to learn myself
Yeah,
so I can become a better version of that to then help other people. So I think that's kind of the ground level of where we're starting right now. Always be learning is something that I think is really important. My wife is a voracious podcast listener, and Brene Brown is one that she listens to a lot. Obviously Simon Sinek, is someone that we definitely look up to. Just anybody that has that hospitality bend to them, we have a natural affinity towards.
totally.
But I also need to make sure that I'm also trying to find people that can help me understand process and structure better, because that's a area that I lack.
Yeah,
And so maybe I don't need to become better at it fully for myself, but I need to understand it more, and I can still adopt things. Just because you have a weakness doesn't mean you still aren't going to have to do those things. You got to work those
100%.
muscles.
Yeah,
And so I've got to figure out what those muscles are first and start working those. There's a lot of chatter out there and a lot of different ways that can distract you away from the things that you need to grow towards. And so find the path that you're on right now, and try to figure out the next step. And so that's one thing we're doing.
yeah,
Um,
I love that.
in, in the small ways, but
Hmm.
really taking time to sit and learn, quit distracting yourself and sit with your thoughts. Learning how to be bored again
Yeah, it's good.
is something that's really difficult,
Yeah,
because we've been trained over really the past 5 years, 6 years with COVID, to where everything is a distraction. Everything's in front of us, and it's really easy to kind of go that direction.
yeah,
And so really trying to find a way to slow down, be around people more, build that community, find out what's important to you. That's the area we're really trying to grow in.
yeah. Ah, it's so good. Thanks for saying that. I've been in therapy for years as well, and I think that all owners, probably everyone should be in therapy from some time to time, but all owners
Yeah.
should be in therapy, in my opinion, for at least in different seasons are different for folks in terms of,
Yeah.
what time availability you have. But I think it's really important to have somebody who's just sharing a different perspective and
I agree.
and a sounding board for you. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Especially, if you're in a position, and I'm not going to mean this in a haughty way, but everybody in their life has a position of power that they have to where they can either help or hurt other people. If you have a position and you're not learning about how to wield that power in a way that helps and lifts people up, then you can use it in a dangerous way that hurts or takes. And so I want to get back to a world where people that see themselves in a position where they have whatever level of power it is, that they're using that to help and move things forward in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the big thing that I'm hoping we're starting to see people turn that corner, to understand that man, we can make a bigger impact if we would just accept the responsibility that we have for ourselves, respect that in ourselves, and then use that to help other people.
Yeah.
And I
Good.
think that's something that you've done a great job with, Pomelo, and your group. You have a lot of history in our industry. You have a lot of different places that you've worked, that you've gone up and grown in. And now you're using that as a way to help other people. So then they don't have to either make the same mistakes or, I mean, sometimes those mistakes happen no matter what,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they at least have someone they can talk to about it to
They
maybe
don't feel
lessen
alone.
the impact. Right.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome's real. Loneliness is real.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing I struggle with, is being alone with my thoughts too much.
Yeah.
But that's where you just kind of have to work through the process
Yeah.
yourself. And so
Yeah.
having good people that you can talk to is important. So,
Yeah. You're
so I
not
appreciate
alone.
you being that good person in our industry to help other people grow.
Mm. Likewise, I mean, you've talked about how much you've helped other folks, and this even too is part of that too of helping folks understand you're not alone. The things you're
Yeah,
facing, they might be unique in your circumstance, but other people have faced them. You might feel alone, but you don't have to be alone.
it's good.
And those are two different things. Okay, we have a
Yeah.
closing tradition on this podcast, and it is
Okay.
to share 1, 2, maybe 3 books that have been particularly formative in your journey.
Oh man, it's going to be trite.
Okay.
It's Unreasonable Hospitality. I know it's trite. I know it's probably mentioned on your podcast a lot. We actually sent our director of hospitality last year to Will Guidera's very first seminar that they put on, the Unreasonable Hospitality Seminar in
Yeah.
Nashville. It's something that I feel very strongly about, that people have a chance to at least go through that book and understand things through a different perspective. That's an easy win. A book that we used to use, we don't use it now very often, that was really instrumental in how we formed our hospitality concept, was Be Our Guest,
I'm not
about
familiar.
Disney.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's the Disney Institute. I've taken countless teams through it. For me, what it does is it helps you understand how to create moments for other people, how to put yourself in a position where you can create magic. And we get to that all the time, inside the coffee world. I talk about how coffee shops are the concierge of their community. When people come in, you get to kind of wow them or not and be a good representative of what things that they can do out in your community. Making magical moments is what Disney does. Now, granted, there's a lot of things I definitely disagree with about that company and things like that. But one thing I think they do really well is that everybody's a cast member. So talk about cross training people. It doesn't matter what your role is. If you're there and your job is to handle the landscaping and make the flowers pretty and pick things up and all that kind of stuff. If a guest comes up to you and they have a question, your job isn't to be a landscaper anymore. Your job is you're a cast member.
Hmm.
For me, that's the most important aspect for our teams, is to understand that every single time that you're in our shops, you're making a moment with our guests.
Yeah.
We used to have all of our shift leads, when they would promote to that level, they would read that book and we'd have them write an essay
Mm.
about something that they learned from that and how they can
Yeah.
impact our company through that. So those are two pretty formative ones. The third one that I can't honestly say that I've read cover to cover multiple times, but one that I think we've gleaned items from that have helped us and it's helped other people in business, and that's Traction. If you're trying to go anywhere and you don't understand what your rocks are, that's going to give you the grip that you need to move forward, that's a really good book. They have an EOS system that goes along with that my wife is a big proponent of as well. That's another good business book right now. Yeah, I would say
So
that
good.
those are three that have been pretty instrumental in us becoming a more professional company. I mean, kind of casting vision and
Yeah.
sharing our hospitality structure overall.
100%. Okay, last question. How do folks get in touch if they either want to set up a wholesale account or buy
Yeah.
coffee from you, or get in touch?
Head into our website. That's how you're going to get in touch with us. And that's palacecoffee.co, not .com. I'll let you guys know a little fact. If you guys are interested in opening a shop, buy your domain name first before you apply for anything with the state, because there's people that sit on those things and they buy the website right out from
Yeah.
underneath you before you do.
Yeah.
I think the guy that has our website now, the last time he tried to sell it to me, I think it was up to $15,000. So, man, there's trolls out there that just try to take advantage of doing no work and making
Yeah.
money. They can work the system. So yeah, palacecoffee.co. You can find us on Instagram at Palace Coffee. That's where we're most active. My email address is patrick@palacecoffee.co. That's how you can get a hold of me directly. And really, I want people to know that, man, there's people out there that are for you. If we can help this industry move forward in a more professional way, man, how great would it be if people go, man, being a barista, Man, what a great job that is, because man, you get to learn this, this, and this, and take this into the next part of your life. And there's different ways of doing business, but man, if we can all focus together on creating that professional environment where we really take care of each other and we understand it better for ourselves, man, we'll be a better industry at large. Having things like this, having ways that we can connect and work and bounce ideas off each other. This is just ways to do it. So,
Yeah.
so thank you, Luke, for, doing what you do. Thanks for your workshop I got to attend 2 years ago. It definitely made an impact on me, so much so that I definitely look forward to having conversation with you whenever we do run into each other. And
Yeah.
hopefully that'll happen more often.
Yeah, let's do it. Patrick, thank you so much for sharing openly about the frameworks that y'all use. Thank you for sharing about what you would tell yourself if you're starting a business 15 years ago today. And thank you for being honest about what it's like to be an owner and the real mental and emotional struggles that we all face, whether we want to admit it or not. We all face them, and I do as well. Thank you for being open and sharing. I look forward to our next conversation.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, friend.
Thanks, Patrick. It's Luke again. I'm back one last time with 2 questions. Number 1, did you learn anything from that conversation? Number 2, did you make a new connection, or perhaps there's a new question as a result of that conversation? If either of those 2 things are true, I'd love to hear about it. Go to my website, PomeloCoffeeConsulting.com, hit the contact tab. There's a form down there. I'd love to hear what connections you made, what questions were answered, or what new questions you might have. Let's chat about it. As always, be well.